Welcome to the KINJAZ Podcast. Here we will discuss dance, life, and whatever the we want.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back or welcome to KINJAZ Movement in the Shadows. We are your host, Ben.
And I'm Anthony.
And today we have a very big inspiration to us all in the pod today. We have actor, producer, spoken word artist, podcast host, and recently a director. You might recognize his voice as Prince Zuko from Nickelodeon's Avatar: The Last Airbender. Repping the Street Freaks Breaking Crew.
What?
And the leader of the Lost Boys,
What?
a.k.a. Rufio, a.k.a. Dante Basco is in the pod.
What's up, hey, damn, Dante's your AKA.
It's good to be
That's
in
your
the
AKA.
dojo podcast.
The dojo pod. Don't make us cry, man.
No, this is the dojo. See, you know, y'all live with
Well,
the
this
dojo.
is the cave.
This is
The
the cave.
cave, yeah.
Which is what we called our sort of lounge at the dojo. We called it
dope.
the cave, so we just brought the cave.
With a K.
I love that, man. No, y'all, it's good to be here. I mean, I've done many shows with Ant over here with JK News. Shout out to JK News.
Forget that.
But it's good to be. I've been a fan of you guys forever.
Thank you.
and
We've been fans of you for many. Dude, we grew up
For
on
like
you, man.
decades.
Yo, I appreciate that.
We can get into all that stuff, but we always start with like the beginnings and the
Of
origins.
course, I saw you. I mean, it started where y'all. Y'all threw out the Street Freaks, which is
Street Freaks.
super dope.
Yeah, let's get into all that. So like, let's get into where you grew up.
Look, I
all
got
the
love for
things.
y'all. I got love for the KINJAZ. I got love for the Asian dance crews that came up, Jabberwockies, Kaba, you know, Kaba Modern. It's like seeing
Those
y'all.
are two of my OG crews,
Yeah.
bro. Kaba and then Jabberwocky.
You know what I'm saying? I got love for those crews because I'm a b-boy. Like that's where me and my brothers come from. When I talk about my story and I talk about, I go to college, go to whatever, Comic-Cons, wherever we're talking about stories, I'm like, yo, we started from the ground level of the entertainment industry. That's where we started. And they're like, where's that? And I was like, it's different for everybody. They're like, is it extras? Is it this? Is it that? I'm like, nah. For us, it was the actual street. Like we was street performers on the streets of San Francisco, just kids.
So you grew up
B-boying.
in the Bay?
In the Bay, yeah. We're
Okay.
from Pittsburgh, California, and it's just a little cutty town outside of the city. And it was kind of like for us the pioneering days of hip hop. I mean, I'm talking early '80s. Hip hop just came to the West Coast. B-boying came to the West Coast. We fell in love with it. It went from like it's exactly like KINJAZ, right? It went from like us loving kung fu theater on Saturday mornings, right?
Yep.
And cartoons and everything. And that kind of turning into what we loved in hip hop, and then b-boying and seeing movies like Beat Street, Breaking,
Yep.
that kind of stuff came, but also just the music that came to us. And like, when I tell people back in the day, it's like, there wasn't no East Coast, West Coast shit that we grew up with in the 90s. It was like, there's one song came from New York, and then it was everybody's song, and everybody did a routine to that song. Like our first competition break-off that we went to, like I was at the Antioch Fairgrounds roller rink, we went in, you signed up with your crew, and you marked what song there's only 4 songs. There was 4, like, did you do your routine to one of these 4 songs? Like, you can only have 4 songs. It was like the West Coast.
Yeah.
It was like, I'm almost positive, it was definitely White Lines, Clear, Planet Rock,
Yeah.
and Egyption Lover.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it was like, those are 4 songs. You did your routine. That's it.
We probably would have done Egyptian Lover.
Egyptian Lover was banging.
Yeah.
So it was like every song that came was like, that was my jam. And so we just started b-boying and just making up moves, biting a lot of, just looking at the older guys doing routines with, inspired by them. We became this crew called the Street Freaks. It was me and my brothers, Street Freaks. I was Poppin' Fresh.
Poppin'
Fresh.
Yeah, I became Defrost later on, but Poppin' Fresh was my OG name. A lot of popping, but I was like the utility dude where I can kind of do everything. You know what I'm saying? Like, I got flares, I got head spins, I got, I had everything. But like, maybe like the other brothers had something like better crabs or better swipes or better, you know what I'm saying? But I can do it all. I probably had the best head spins. But then we got very popular. We started winning all these breakdancing competitions in the Bay. Like, my mom did our stats one year. She's like, damn, y'all had like we won like 30. We placed in the top 3 in like 32 breakdance competitions in a year.
Dang,
It was like
you
during
went out to
weekends.
lots of jams then.
Gang of jams, right? And so we was just rocking, and then we ended up starting getting paid. So we started doing like shows. We opened up for like Vanity and for like Ice-T at these concerts at like the Stone and at like little things. And then we got picked up and we did shows for the San Francisco 49ers. We did like the third, the 7th inning stretch and the 3rd inning shows for the Oakland A's.
Yeah.
And then
How old were you at this point?
this is what happened. Then we got scholarships to San Francisco Ballet Company. Then we studied ballet. Me and my brothers.
Wow.
We did the Nutcracker, and now we're like officially professional dancers. And my mom's like, "Y'all want to like go from kind of being like these kind of bigger fish in this like small pond of the bay, and like jump into the ocean that is L.A." I'm like, "Yeah." We jumped in the van and moved to L.A. Drove down the 5, moved to L.A. I was 10 years old.
10 years old.
Damn.
All that shit happened before I was 10.
Wow.
I still like, what the fuck? Like, I think about it now, look at my nieces and nephews, and I'm like, people are like, were y'all prodigies? I'm like, no. Like, we definitely weren't prodigies. We were just like, about it. You know what I'm saying? We were just about it.
You're not prodigies, but you're probably looking at your nieces after you was like 9 years old. You're like, you ain't doing shit.
Nah, they killed it. No, my nieces.
You ain't doing shit.
My niece played Cassandra Cain in Birds of Prey.
Okay.
She has a band, and my other niece, who's like 12, she's the bass player. She already directed her first short.
Okay, then we ain't doing shit.
Yeah, and then my nephew's the drummer in the band, and they all act, and they all got their
So do
college
you come
paper.
from like a family of artists and entertaining?
We
like,
are now.
Yeah.
Now,
Okay.
but we were the first generation that started doing it. Then our whole generation, a lot of my cousins.
He's
What are your-
Filipino. That means
Yeah.
everybody's just.
Well,
in
what about your
entertainment.
parents though?
My parents were, not really. My parents were like, military.
Okay.
All my dad was military. My grandfather was military. All my uncles, both sides. My mom's side too. So it was more like the military World War II vets that came to America, Filipinos, and then, try to get into the American thing. And
Yeah.
My uncles and stuff were military, but then we became artists, and then a lot of people in my generation, a lot of my cousins became artists. Some went to Broadway, did some stuff on Broadway. Others become filmmakers, other things like that. So it's kind of cool that we kind of led the way in that now, a new generation.
Right.
Now it's like almost weird, like my nephews are like, my niece like, like I want to be a doctor. I'm like, what? Who you hanging out with?
Trying to be a
I was like,
doctor?
You're gonna be
no,
a
no, no,
doctor?
you need to be an
You're
artist.
hanging out with weird people, bro. You need to go write some poetry.
Do your nieces and nephews look at you and like, damn, my uncle's cool, or are you just Uncle
I don't know.
Uncle
Man.
Dante?
I like to think that we're cool, but these kids are so cool now. They so
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
But it is cool. Like my niece, Ella J. Bosco, who's also my goddaughter. Like I'm her ninong. In Filipinos, like ninong is pretty important. Like she calls me ninong. She starred in this movie Birds of Prey with Margot Robbie. She plays Cassandra Cain, who's like the new Batgirl kind of girl in DC. And so when she was coming out, I got to take her to a bunch of parties and like, took her like the Golden Globes party and introduced her to folks and like the Unforgettable Asian Gala,
Yeah.
And so it was really cool to kind of take your niece out
Yeah.
and be like a scene that I grew up in my whole life and be like, oh, this is my niece. Like next generation's coming up.
That's dope.
So I think they think we're cool. I don't know. Who the heck is cool enough?
Yeah.
Cool enough.
They like to
Yeah.
go shopping. I take them shopping, so that's cool.
Yeah. So you came out here to pursue dance then. It wasn't even acting.
We were dancers, yeah.
Yeah.
We
So-
came out as straight up dancers.
Okay.
And then even as dancing, like we danced a lot. I mean, we ended up dancing we did the Michael Jackson video, Baby Bad, Moonwalker. The Moonwalker with the kids where they did the video with the kids.
Yeah.
So me and my brother Dion I was actually understudying Dion in that video. They do like 2 casts for the thing. So, but we were part of that cast. And so we danced for Mike. And I was like, which was crazy.
Yeah.
But then we quickly found out like, this is a movie and television town. Like this town is a TV town. You know what I'm saying? And then I stopped dancing. It was like, I remember my last dance audition. I was like, I'm out. I can't do this anymore. I told my dance teacher, like, I can't go anymore. I was like one of the fly girls was doing the choreography. It was a choreographer for the audition. I remember like peeking him. I'm like, I got halfway through the 16 count. I was like, I'm done. This ain't for me.
Yeah.
I don't think I can keep it up. But when we were here dancing, we was like, I danced for OP and for Adidas, and we did the mag shows for years. And part of the whole dance. I'm still part of the dance scene. Like I still got my, I know you guys. I know a lot of different generations of dancers that become choreographers. I finally got to do a dance film in my career called Take the Lead with Antonio Banderas. And for me, that was like a full circle situation. So I really love, I always feel like once a dancer, always a dancer. I'm still a dancer. Yeah. In my mind. I'm still a hip hop artist. Like,
you gotta prove it. You gotta get on stage.
I'm down to boogie. I'm down to boogie. I mean, if I'm in a club, he's definitely getting down for sure. But I always tell folks like, man, I'm a b-boy.
Yeah.
Like I've been in an interview with some old serious cats and be like, yo,
that's
I'm
what
hip-hop.
It's funny that you mentioned the club because I was actually, you probably don't remember. That's the first time I met you. I met you at a club. You were hanging out with Sean Evaristo.
Oh yeah, Sean's a homie. Yeah,
I think it was Federal Bar, maybe. I think in NoHo, and I think you guys were working together on something.
We were doing a film that never came. There's all these films that kind of happened and never done, but they had his Sean is a beast, and we were doing a movie called Boogie Town.
Oh, that was the movie that. So a hell of the homies auditioned for that movie. Yeah. We all made crews and we did like all the battle sequences. And I remember
it was a great concept for a film. I'm so mad it didn't.
That was a Marcus Houston one, right?
Yeah,
that's right. And like Cabo was in there too.
Yeah. I had a crew with it was Lando, me, KJ.
Lando's the beast. I remember Lando. Yeah, no, did we meet during that time?
We did meet during that time. And then, but yeah, I remember we were so stoked on it because the concept was dope.
Super.
And then it just didn't happen.
And yeah, and it was like basically for people out there, this movie never came out. You probably could Google and see some stuff, but it was essentially about a black crew versus an Asian crew. And it wasn't too long after like you got served and stuff. So it was
right off the heels of that.
Yeah, and who's on the black side? It was it
was Marcus Houston.
It was Marcus Houston.
He was kind of leading it, but like.
But Omarion was on set.
So.
Was there?
But wasn't there some sort of like vampire concept in there too?
Yeah, there was, right?
There was something weird.
Yeah, there was something weird about it. I was like, wait, how does vampires
I didn't get too involved in the story. I was like,
Yeah.
But there was something weird. But the dance sequence
the dancing was dope.
That we did do were dope. But I don't know if they finished the rest of the film or not.
Yeah, it definitely didn't get made.
Brenda's song was in it on the Asian side.
That's right.
And I was in it, and it was gonna be dope. Mm-hmm. I did see one dance sequence kind of like cut together and it looked fresh.
Right. Yeah.
But
in
I don't know
what happened. A parking structure or something.
In a parking structure, yeah. And I forgot who choreographed. I mean, Sean choreographed our side, but I forgot who choreographed the African American side. Was it Shane?
Probably, because he was right off of You Got Served.
Yeah, it was Shane.
Shane or Dave Scott, one of those guys. Yeah.
But all those dudes. Yeah, so I keep my toe in the dance world for sure. I'm actually attached to direct a dance film, so we'll see. Y'all might be getting a phone call from me soon.
You mentioned this on JKD.
It's still up it's still in the works, but I've been like kind of like pinned to direct it.
Yeah,
and it takes place overseas, so if it happens, I'll be calling up. I'll be calling y'all up.
Go, baby. Yeah. Well, okay, so dancing was what brought you out here, and then you decided like, okay, this town is like the film and TV town. So then what was the thing that kind of boosted you to be pursuing the acting side?
Just instantly, man. It's like my mom is like one of them women that just, she didn't know nobody, we was broke. We weren't rich or nothing. Like literally, my parents were blue, they're still, blue collar Filipinos from the Bay, and then blue collar Filipinos from LA. And they were like, they went through some bad business deals as them and their crew. How the folklore goes, my dad's never been a great businessman, so he's a telephone man. But him and his friends got together to do some business, some real estate stuff. One of their homies took off with the money.
Oh no!
He basically bankrupted the crew, which is crazy to think about it. And we're the kids kind of just dancing, doing our stuff. And my mom was like, hey, I let you run with it one way and it didn't go, which is all good. Stuff happens. I want to bet on our kids. And so basically we jumped into a van, our maroon van, and like $100. My dad's like gave us a year. He's like, y'all got a year to make something happen or you got to come home, And we came to LA, and then we started out as dancers, but then my mom was like, these kids got to act because this is an acting town. So we got an agent, got her an acting class. She like did some old Filipino pray on it, circled her name, found a teacher, became our teacher for better or worse, for good and bad, for like 20 years, which was some great things happened, some bad things happened. But we definitely learned how to act. And then I kind of booked my first job. Basically, I went and booked my first job, and then kind of just ran from there and just continued to work since I was 10.
What was your first job?
I played a Native American kid. I played an Indian Native American in this show called The Wizard. A few lines on the show called The Wizard, which was like some show about a toy maker back in the 80s, and it was like
Dang, you grew up in that primetime entertainment where you could play like 700 different races.
Everything, dude. 100%.
You could play Latino.
Yeah, I played half my resume is Mexican or Puerto Rican.
That's amazing.
I mean, they didn't even know what a Filipino was when I first got here. Filipino was gone. Not even. They looked at you like, what is Filipino? Right. And it's like the good thing about being Filipino is it's a mixture of a lot of things. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? We are the Asian Latinos. We're like Asian and Latino. So and I'm a young hustler kid, right? And I'm like, well, what's the role? They're like, it's Mexican. I'm like, well, Filipinos like the same thing. Like we got colonized by Spain, just like Mexico. We have Spanish. They're like, we are Latino like that. Oh, what's the role? It's Chinese. Oh. My grandma on my dad's side, she's like half Chinese, she's part Chinese. Like we're in Asia. Like, what's the role? It's Vietnamese. Well, Southeast Asia. Like they basically our cousins. Like we the same thing. Right. So I mean, you just kind of get your groove on like that. But then we also grew up in the hood, so it's like what I didn't realize now. I didn't realize then, but what I realize now is like. It my career opened up a whole kind of not a market, but just a perspective that never existed in Hollywood before I got here, right? Mm-hmm. Like people,
you was still around at a time where a bunch of white people was playing Chinese people in movies,
let alone a cool Asian person that was hip hop that wasn't necessarily things I started doing in my career. People, luckily, I got roles like when I was on Fresh Prince. I was on Fresh Prince. I didn't play the stereotypical like nerdy Asian dude. I was a jock that was dumb, but I was Ashley's boyfriend, but I was a dumb jock, but I'm Asian. They're like, whoa, this is super weird. You know what I'm saying? But
Ashley was fine.
Oh my God. And then I ended up going on to make a movie later on with her where she played my girlfriend in a movie called Faking the Funk, where I play an Asian kid adopted by a black family. Pam Grier plays my mom, Ernie Hudson plays my father. Wow. And so I got to open up a new lane in Hollywood where people be like, that did not exist before you got here. The idea of like an urban Asian person, a hip hop Asian person,
a cool Asian,
I mean, most people say like you're the cool, like you're the first cool Asian I've ever seen on film in Hollywood. A whole generation, like you're the first cool Asian we ever saw. Yeah, which is kind of cool. Which opened up the door for cats like Tim Delgado, you know what I'm saying, or certain cats that came down the line, and there was other guys in my generation, Asians that were great, that are our friends, John Cho, cats like that had great careers, but it was like we were different. Like if me and John for the same role, it's like, well, there's one way to go about it, and then there's like Dante was like a whole nother bag of whatever.
Plus your name's Dante. That's already cool.
Plus my name's Dante. I know. What? It's like a blessing and a curse, the whole thing, because people be like, it's cool that you kind of create this lane, but then the other thing weird is like when you're going out, they finally write some Asian roles, and then you walk in the room and like, this ain't the kind of Asian we like. What kind of Asian are you? Like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Looking wise and vibe wise. Like I read for Harold and Kumar, right? I'm the first person that remember Harold Kumar, and John kills Harold and Kumar. But I'm like, I remember I read for Harold. They brought me in for Harold and Kumar, and they're like, "You're the first person we're meeting for Harold and Kumar." I was like, "Cool." And we're doing the script, and the guys.
And you're reading for Kumar, right?
No, I'm reading for Harold.
You can go either. You can read for either.
No, I'm reading for Harold, and they're like, "We gotta stop you right now, Dante." I'm like, "What?" They're like, "We can't hire you for this." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Nah, man. Like, you just are." Because I was like. In the room, kind of like hyped to do the role, and I'm like, "There's a role, it's a Latino girl." I'm like, "Oh, you're my, I can get the script to like Rosario Dawson. She's, I know Ro, and she might be cool for this." And then we were like chopping up like that, and then we started doing the role, and she's like, "We can't hire you for this." I'm like, "What?" They're like, "You're great, but you're not Harold." They're like, "Why?" I'm like, "Why?" They're like, "Well, Harold has to be scared of the girl." I said, "Right." He goes, "Dante, you walk in, it's like we think you already fucked the girl." I said, "What?" They're like, "That's just how you come off." I'm like, "I could play that You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then they're like, no, like they literally said, you say you can get the script for Rosario Dawson? I said, yeah. They said, how do you know Rosario Dawson? I said, huh? They're like, did you date? Do you date? I'm like, I mean, that's what we're saying. You can't. They're like, you can't play Harold, bro.
Wait,
like,
so you went on a date with Rosario Dawson?
we dated when we were younger, yeah.
Yo,
When we were kids, like kids.
she
you
still
know?
look fine even
No,
in Star
she-
Wars tentacles.
Oh, yeah.
She's a homie forever. She's a homie forever. Like when we were kids, so she's like, but like the idea is like you're not the idea of what we
Right.
wrote it for. Like,
Yeah, you're not Harold.
but I would love to
look
play
across-
Harold.
You're not Harold. Ben's not Harold. I'm more Harold than both of you.
You're
John
not even Harold.
Kinda
John
look
Cho's
like
my
John
doppelganger.
Cho.
Yeah.
You look like John
and
Cho,
I
but
am
like
not
vibe,
at
you're-
all fucked Rosario Dawson. So I feel like we're A-okay.
and we're all good.
Yeah.
Dude, that's really interesting. You know, when you say that though, like you bring that vibe of the cool Asian guy. I mean, my first finding out who you were was through Hook,
Oh yeah.
the leader of the Lost Boys. I'm like, damn, this fool's badass. You know what I mean? Like the way that you came off, and you came off like not like a gang leader, but I mean, this is obviously like Peter Pan story, but
we a little gang.
you
Yeah,
had
it was a
that.
little gang.
Yeah, it was a gang. But like that to me, and I was a kid. I was like probably in like 4th grade or something, like 4th, 5th grade when that came out. And it wasn't this like, oh, there's this Asian guy. I was like, I think there's something that I feel connected to this guy. And it was your character. It was the confidence that you put out. And then it was kind of me feeling like, I feel like I want to be like this guy. And that was the first time for me as a kid.
Right.
Outside of like the Bruce Lees and things
No,
like
of
that,
course,
you know what I
Bruce
mean?
Lee,
I was
only
like,
Bruce.
Bruce Lee was that dude that like, of course, like, yes, you are the superhero for Asians, but to me, you were somebody that I felt like I could almost relate to, that it felt tangible.
Right.
Now, you know what I'm saying? Like Bruce Lee to me was like, okay, I'm not going to be this martial artist, like superhero type dude. I feel like I can kind of maybe figure out how to kind of get inspired by this dude. It
Right.
felt a little bit more, and I don't mean that in a, like
No,
you
no,
were
I
on
feel
a
you.
lower thing.
Like
It was
like an Amazon Prime superhero. You know what I mean? Versus...
No, I think I think that's representation.
yes,
what I'm saying?
yes.
I mean, look, I've been doing cons for the last few years and engaging with a fan base and from especially generation group of Rufio. And it's like, it's wild when it's like, anyone that connected, women, men, white guys, like, whoa, like, but when Asian Americans connect with it, I get it. Cause it's like, hey, yo, for us to see ourselves on screen in any capacity. And it's like a plethora of Asians, whether it be Filipinos or Koreans or Chinese or Indian. It's like, yo, growing up, like I was in school, my home, my friends in school call me Rufio.
People
like-
call you Rufio at
No,
school?
not me, but like an Asian kid will say, people call me Rufio, and I'm like, well, then you was the cool
Yeah,
Asian kid.
yeah.
Like I know who you were at school then. You know what I'm saying? Or
Yeah,
how people
right.
saw you as one of those dudes. And I think it's important. It's not something that you think about when we're doing it. When I'm doing it, I'm 15. You know what I'm saying? I'm cocky or whatever, I'm trying to do my thing, but you're walking with gods. I mean, I would start acting when I was 10. I was studying religiously I religiously studied for 20 years, so 5 years into it, I'm studying, and I know very well who Dustin Hoffman is. Very well. I know all his films. I know Robin Williams very well, from Mork and Minnie to The World According to Garb to like these. I know how they've impacted the industry. I know that they're greats. They're gods. You know what I'm saying? I know who Steven Spielberg is to the nth degree. And so I would come to work on my days off. My days off, dude, just to like sit next to the camera and like watch these guys work.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I tell young artists like, you know, if you have the good fortune, even when I'm talking with you guys, right, when hanging out with y'all, and you're in the presence of greatness, you better go see it. You better go take the time to sit there, absorb it. It's like seeing Spielberg direct, seeing Hoffman act, do character work, seeing Robin Williams do improv work is equivalent of us being able to sit in a room with Picasso, watch him do some strokes. Sit in a symphony hall with Mozart, watch him conduct. That's what these guys are. That's what y'all are in dance wise. We're around greats.
The closest thing that we had to that was Jackie Chan. Actually,
Jackie Chan, dude.
Yo, we had this moment when we were in China. We were about to leave. right? And then I was cool. I'm cool with his son, JC. And then we were just hanging out, and then he was like, "Hey, what are you guys doing today?" And we're like, "Oh no, we're flying out today." He's like, "Oh, okay." And I was like, "Why?"
Why?
He's like, "Oh, my dad's in town."
Nah, we gotta
And,
kick it.
and he's like, he's shooting his movie like just a little bit
Gotta
away in
go.
the city. We're like, "Oh my god, all right, well, we're gonna stop by." We had all our bags packed. We get into this minivan in China. We go like an hour out of the city. We stop by this spot, and then people are filming and stuff. This dude JC comes out with a fucking scooter and stuff, and he like brings us in, right? And then we go in, and they're in the middle of shooting. And we go in and we sit down, and everybody's like, shh. They bring us to this room, and right in the next room, Jackie's filming, right? And he's directing this movie. So he's got this chick who's sitting in this chair, his lead actress, some sort of drama and stuff. The camera's just panning on this track, and she's got this music instrument, and she's supposed to just play something. It's all in Chinese. Nobody knows what the fuck's going on, right? And they do this take maybe 2-3. You remember this, right? They do this take like 2-3 times, and he's trying to coach her, and she's not really like hitting it perfect or anything. And we're just watching at Video Village, right? So all of us are kind of just like holding our breath, like we don't what's going on. We hear his voice, but we know the aura's here. We feel the presence, right? Next thing you know, he like stops it. She gets out of the screen. We're watching on the Video Village, and he sits in there. And this is like, if you're watching a sitcom. Sitcoms is moments where we're just like fully applauding, right? But obviously we had to be quiet. He sits down, and then he's basically like, this is how you do it. And then he starts doing his whole, he's so dedicated with his eyebrows and shit. He closes his eyes. He like gets into an emotional place with his fucking round nose and shit. It's all cute, right? And he does this epic shit. And he's like, that's how you do it, basically, right? She sits back down, and then he's like, all right, we're going to take a break. Everything starts getting live. The doors open. All these people rush over. They're getting in the way. They're clearing the road for this god, you know what I mean? This legend on life. And he walks over to like check out the Video Village. We're trying to back up, pretend like we don't exist, because we're not trying to be in this fucking breathing space using his oxygen, right? And then all this kind of passes, and he's like, all right, we're going to break for lunch. And that's when his son introduces us. And then they're like, hey, this is the KINJAZ. He's like, oh, the KINJAZ, yeah. Your choreography's fucking sick. All of us nearly shat the bed right there. Like, none of us had, and I swallowed my whole heart. You know what I mean? And then one thing leads to another. They got to like go on a break and stuff. They're like, hey, let's get a picture. He's totally cool with that. We get there. We pose for a picture. We posted this. We posted fucking every single time on his birthday and stuff. It's the best thing ever. We post this photo. He says something in Chinese to his son real quick, and he walks away. Right? And his son's like, oh, no. But again, I look at him like, hey, what'd he say? He's like, no, you guys are leaving, right? I was like, hey, what'd he say? He's like, oh, no, he invited you guys to dinner, but you guys were leaving. And I remember just turning around. The whole squad looks at me. They're like, and then I look at our homie Eli. I'm like, hey, can we change our flights? And straight up, all of us pony up maybe like $250 each. We all change our flights. We go out, eat king crab with this dude.
Let's go.
And he's just sitting at this table watching our YouTube videos. And this is straight up. We're gonna be repeating this story to like our grandkids. It's one of the most glorious things. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
Gotcha.
When you're in the room with the legend,
you gotta just be there.
Yeah.
You guys gotta be there. Yeah. And you just hope some of it rubs off on you somewhere.
Yeah. Hopefully, yeah.
Because it's the other thing is this whole art form, filmmaking, and dance. It's a craft, and it's it's passes down. It's not just passed down through what you study. You got to be around the greats and see. There are things that you may not even understand, and you just gotta be a sponge and absorb it. And
you were talking about how Dustin Hoffman was giving you a hard time.
He would give me a hard time a little bit. Who did I tell you that?
Yeah, you told us on JK News.
He was pushing me. He was pushing me, and I didn't know how to take it as a young actor. But he's a method dude, and he was playing Captain Hook, and I was his adversary, and he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna push you." On intakes, between takes, there's no off time.
Wow.
My dude's Captain Hook the whole time.
Right.
I'm like, all right, this is how it's gonna be. But I worked him down a little bit because I wanted to talk to him about acting, and so I really came to the set, even though he was looking at me as an adversary for many, many, many days. That was stressing my young ass out. Because I'm like, I look up this dude. I would come to set, and I would be like, I just watched Lenny last night, like in this scene. Like, what were you thinking? He's like, what? It's like, I just watched Kramer vs. Kramer last night. Like, when this was happening, like, and he's like, what? And I was reading his biography, like, and it's not, I wasn't like trying to brown nose him. I was like, this is real, like,
you're doing your homework.
I'm doing my homework. I'm like, want to know, like, what's popping, And so by the time it came to my death scene, I was like, yo, man, I knocked on his trailer door, like, Dustin, Mr. Hoffman, like, I got to do this death scene. I've never done a death scene. You have advice? And he's like, I'll be there, kid. And he was like my acting coach for the whole death scene. It was crazy.
That's crazy.
That's tight,
man.
Wild. So I mean, the greats are there, and like if they kind of like sniff it on you, like, oh, you're an actor, because we all do it. Like I've been acting for 37 years. You act, and what I've learned from a lot of great actors too, you kind of deal with people from who they are. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a new actor, you deal with as a new actor. Like you just do, if someone's a personality, you kind of deal. You have fun with what they do, and you kind of bring out what you do. And you do it. But then when you see an actor, when an actor sees an actor, when a dancer sees a dancer, it's the same thing. It's like you walk in a club and you're like, okay, like
yeah, it's the truth. You can smell
it's
the truth.
truth.
Yeah.
It's like I want to see sometime tonight, sometime during this performance today, we are going to get to tango, and we're gonna get it for real, and it really changes things. You know what I'm saying? When I did Take the Lead, I mean, I got to play this character. I mean, like I'm 29, playing in high school. I've done this character. I mean, I always play the kid who's kind of like a badass, who actually kind of a good kid. And then I'm doing this scene. The director wrote me a letter. She's like, "You really changed Antonio Banderas' performance 2 times in this movie. I saw what you did in takes, and it changed what Antonio did." And I go, well, I mean, in my back of my mind, I'm like, well, if I can't play this character, I can't play any character. But I also understand, like, when actors are with actors, and we're gonna play, like, we're gonna like really give each other something. And it's like a tennis player playing with a really good tennis player. Once you get play with a better tennis player, like we're gonna
play up.
We're gonna play tennis today.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's fun like that. And I see that with other actors too. Like young actors are coming up, like, oh, all right, you got your style. It almost comes like, I think, like I'm a b-boy at heart. Like I approach acting first and foremost as a b-boy, right? When going auditions, it's like they're like, why did you? And some people hate auditions. I go, well, I love auditioning because it's a battle. Like you going in and really you competing against yourself. It's about being able to show out at the moment when you're supposed to show out.
Yeah.
That's what it's about. Like not crumpling under the pressure. It's not necessarily about what they do or winning or losing to them. That's beside the point. You grow up and you understand I'm not really battling them. I'm actually just battling myself to want. But the thing about b-boying when you're battling is like when you're on stage and it's your time to show out, you have to, when you got the light, you have to rock.
You got to put it
You
down.
can't be like, I rocked in the dojo. Nah. You got to do all that to prepare. But if you can't pull it off in the moment on the beat, magical things could happen. That's what the audition is. Being able to pull that out right there. And so then when it becomes, when you're battling, or not really battling, but when you're acting with another person, it's like kung fu. It's like dancing. Like 2 different styles come together on set. Like, ooh. All right, let's approach each other. You're doing scenes together, choices, things are happening. You're like playing tennis. You're dancing with each other. You're being, oh, that's what you're gonna do? Okay, and you're trying to like impact each other and be impacted. You know what I'm saying? And so certain times you just gotta do it yourself because the other person may not be at a level where they're like really giving you a lot, but you know what the story needs. And there's other times where the person is giving you stuff that you didn't even know.
Yeah, totally.
I was unprepared that you were gonna give me that, and it's crazy. When I was directing my film, the actress, this actress working with my brother Darian.
This is Fabulous
Filipino Brothers, yeah. So the actress Lisa Lapira, we just met her, so we hired her for this. But then all my brothers are in the film, the Fabulous Filipino Brothers. And my brothers, they've been acting as long as I have. They're all gangsters. Like we're all 35 years in the industry. And so my brother Darian, amazing. He might be. With the brothers, I was like, who's the best actor? He's pretty good. He's like the Pacino of the bunch. And so we're doing the scenes, and I'm doing the scenes with them. And then, of course, we're like the coverage, like ladies first, and we let Lisa do her thing, and she's doing the stuff in the restaurant. And then I flip the camera around and do Dar's stuff, and Dar does some stuff where it's like when you're acting, any art, dancing, anything, it's like when someone hits a certain chord, music, like the air in the room changes.
Yeah.
Like it's like, and we're like, oh shit, like that shit was crazy, Yeah. And I'm behind the camera, like directing, just giving little notes, but like pushing them, then it goes there, and then it's like, after we did the scene, Lisa was like, looked at me. She's like, look, I'm going second next time. Like, you know, she's like, but that's what actors do. You
love
feel
that.
it. And she's like,
we
nah.
know that's
She's
exactly
like,
how
I'm
it is
going
in the
second
dance room
next
too.
time.
Yeah.
Fuck that. He ain't gonna do that shit, and then I need to know what he's gonna do so I can do what I'm gonna do. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But I love that with actors. Like, that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to push each other to like do more, do something unexpected. Do we push our limits a little bit?
Yeah. What was the thing that pushed you to step into the director's role from being an actor to actually want to sit in the director's seat?
Yeah, I don't think I really ever wanted to be I never aspired to be a director. I love directors. It's just stories, man. Like, we're just storytellers.
Was this a story that you had written as well?
Yeah, I wrote the story. Me and my brother Dar actually wrote the story, but the story's been in my head for a while, and it became a family affair because it's all inspired by my family. It's starring my family. It's about stories from my family. I've been producing films for like the last 10 years or so. This is probably my 8th film, and all Asian, exclusively Asian American films. So this is what happened. Like, so a lot of things, like, I've been an actor for so long, but then I produced a lot of theater because he grew up in theater and we produced theater. And then about 10 years ago, when I was doing Avatar, like, Mako passed away, who played my Uncle Iroh, right? He played Uncle Iroh, and Mako he played my uncle, my father, several times in my career since I was 12. And then he passed away doing Avatar, and he's like an Uncle Iroh character to me. You know, he's been someone who I can touch base with throughout my whole career,
He was like the fatter guy in the cartoon
in the
that had like the old hair, but he was like on your side.
He's
and
on
he was
my
really
side.
nice.
Uncle
and
Iroh,
stuff, even though he was a fire temple, right?
Totally. But Mako, as an actor, is one of the most prolific Asian American actors in the last 50 years in Hollywood. He's nominated for an Oscar for Sand Pebbles with Steve McQueen. He's been in so many, tons of credits. And he's one of the co-founders of East West Players, which is the Asian American theater in Los Angeles, which is the longest running Asian American theater or people of color theater in America.
Wow.
Which is crazy. Yeah. And it's a theater that I did plays in, I continue to do stuff in, wrote plays in, been a part of what I've been doing. And so I even learned from him in his passing, like, oh, like, it's not about you anymore, just about you. It's about passing it on to the next generation. That got me into, and I'm not at a time where I'm not gonna create a theater company. I started creating production companies. Let's make movies. Let's make Asian American films. Let's start making Asian American films before it be, right now we're in a golden era for Asian films, and I love being a part of that. And I also love being a part of the cast that came up to what that became. And when I started producing films, Asian films with Asian leads, they're like, "What are you doing?" Like my white friends that are Hollywood, they're like, "Why are you doing this?" Like, we got this kid or that kid, we could probably get more budget. I'm like, no, that's not what we're trying to do. What it is I'm trying to get films with like people that look like me to. That's what the story's about. The people that kiss at the end of the movie should look like us, like me. Mm-hmm. And they're like, why? I'm like, because it's representation. We had this whole thing. It started on the 8th with Asia Raphael. And we did all these 4 years of talking about Asian filmmaking. And a lot of these conversations led up to things like Crazy Rich Asians. Mm-hmm. By the time Crazy Rich Asians hit, I love John Chu. He hit me up. He's like, we got to talk. Everyone's saying, like, you're the one with the boots on the ground talking about what's been going on. And kind of being a part of that process very little, just to be able to kind of talk to him about the community and representation and everything. Because, John had not done an Asian film until then. And it's important. And then all of a sudden, the people that were kind of second guessing what I was doing on the indie film side were like, oh, I get it. Now I get it. And so that's just a big answer to say. Then it became to me my turn to direct after producing like 8 films or so. It was like my producing partner was like, you got something? I'm like, yeah. And then just how things happen. We're pitching like 3-4 projects at a time usually. And sometimes, I had this one film in my back pocket, and one production company in the Philippines really loved it and gave us the funding for it. And so I was like, okay, I guess I'll direct this one. I'll direct it. And
that's amazing.
Yeah, again, and I dug it. So I'm
so you're gonna do another one?
I'm gonna do a few. I think I have a few.
That dance movie that you're gonna
dance movie. I have a few. There's a few that I haven't created. There's tons that I've written that I want to do, and there's other that people have reached out to me to helm a few projects. I want to see what it feels like to kind of direct something that I didn't write or develop. But there's so much talent out there. You know what I'm saying? And I'm really, it's just a great time for Asian cinema. So people reaching out to me as an Asian director, like, oh, we need to get Dante,
Totally.
which is great.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm cool with that. So I'm really excited to see what we can do.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
That's
saying?
amazing. Can I ask you a question? You had mentioned something earlier, like nonchalantly breezed over, but I knew I was gonna hold on to it. You were talking about how you were taking acting coaching lessons. You had an acting coach for like 20 years. You said great things
20 years.
happen and not so great things.
Yeah, man. I mean, y'all been in this industry a long time. If you're in LA, look, this is a hard industry, and there's like crazy things happen. And I'm 37 years deep, right? And I was a child actor, and so I always tell people like, yeah, man, if you've been in Hollywood for like 10 years, 20 years plus, like, if you ain't got a true Hollywood story, you ain't really done this town right, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, there's people, there's trauma that happens. You're working at such a young age. You're idealistic. You're really, you have a lot of passion for these creative things that are like very intangible, and things happen, man. There was times where I didn't talk to my parents for 7 years, which is crazy. Which kind of was a part of this whole acting school that became very cultish at a time in my life.
The acting school was cultish.
The acting school became very cultish, and there's a lot of issues there. But it's always like a catch-22 or like a kind of a double-edged sword, because like in art, like you have these masters that you see. Part of the cycle is like seek out a master, become a master, pass it on. That's art. That's martial arts. That's artistry. That's what we do. That's dance. That's everything. But sometimes you get connected to some cats that you look up to that they're going through their thing, and you get caught up in their whirlwind for a few years, and damage happens. And I try to keep at peace in my mind and just hope, I hope no one met any ill will at anything that was happening. It's just how things worked out, and I try to take my responsibility in aspects of your life and your career and whatnot. But yeah, not just with the acting school, with management and agents and damage and abuses that emotional, physical thing. I mean, it runs the gambit when you're in a town this long, and you're especially a family that didn't know anybody, we wet behind the ears kind of thing, and we had each other. But that being said, we also went through a lot of ups and downs. It's like, what happened here? What happened there? Like, man, like, believe me, there's things that happen, and some of the stories aren't even for me to say. You know what I'm saying? There's stories that happen within the family that's like, I'm gonna leave other people in the family to tell those stories. Yeah. But it affects all of us, and it's not, it's great. We have great careers and we do great art, but also nothing's free in this town. Nothing's free.
Yeah, I'm not gonna press and have you.
Andy's like, okay.
No, I'm not gonna have you dive, because that's a very PC and a very mature way to answer a question like that. Means you've had to do some work yourself. You know what I mean? To understand and internalize those understandings and the lessons from that. But I guess to almost get to something positive from it. Like, let's say there's a young child actor, you know what I mean, today, like, from your experiences relative to that, like, what would you say, or what advice would you give to somebody who's trying to get into the game?
Man, it's hard. I always say, look, it's part of the game. You know what I'm saying? It's like, be true to yourself. Watch out. I wrote a book called Rufio, From Rufio to Zuko, and I kind of talk about some of the stuff just to give, any young artist, especially Asian American kids that come in, like, these are some potholes I ran into. Like, you're gonna hit potholes.
Yeah.
Like, try not to hit.
Can't be avoided, but
can't be avoided. But don't try not to hit these potholes. Don't lose yourself. You lose yourself. You can lose yourself in this industry, and I'm thankful that the times I may have lost my way or lost who I was, I didn't die. You know what I'm saying? I have friends that did not make it out of child acting to adulthood. You know what I'm saying? Whether it be drugs or anything, or just went home. And that's also not a death. I mean, I think I respect everyone's journey and their process. And I think as a younger artist, I used to think some type of way, oh, you couldn't take it in this town. You know what I'm saying? But then now, me as an older actor, now I'm like, yo, man, enjoy. I mean, I'm glad you had the time you take, go home and like share your story with the next generation. Let them, surpass what you did here, which is great. But as far as advice is like, you have to come to town. You have to be vulnerable. You have to reveal yourself. But be smart and try not to lose yourself in the validation of others or valuing yourself. This town can drive you crazy, man.
Yeah.
Who you are and what your worth is. We've all done it. We've all put our worth on some extraneous thing in this town, whether it's money
100.
or credits or fame, clout. Now you got social media with likes and followers, and look, it's a part of the game. The reason why y'all coming here, all the youngsters out there, it's part of what we came. It's sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It's part of it. And go through it. I'm not even saying don't do it. If you don't do it, what are we doing? You know what I'm saying? It's part of the process, but you're gonna get to a place where you understand that fame is just a tool. You need to actually understand who you actually are. Mm-hmm. Know who you are. Don't forget that no matter what your bank account says, no matter what your social profile says, keep a strong clique around you that is really know and root for each other as people. You know what I'm saying? I was lucky to have my brothers and my sister, my family as being close ties, and my really close group of friends that I found through my acting class that had a lot of damage connected to it. But we all found each other and still rock with each other 20 plus years. So it's I'd say that the best thing is to find your tribe and keep them close. The real people, keep them close, because this town could eat you up. Your experience is going to be definitely reflected in the company you keep. So it's if you find your clique, the real people that you respect as people and as artists, people and the art that they do. Because in this town, it goes hand in hand. You just can't rock with people that you don't respect their art. Yeah. Because when it comes time to rep, it's
you got to rep.
You want to be in the class. You want to be associated in the class of people you feel you are in. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so, yeah, it's but you want to find good people too. They can't just be great artists and they're just
100
assholes, or they're out for themselves only, and they'll stab you in the back 9 times out of 10. You're you don't want that, and that shit happens in the streets of LA every night. Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Right, this is true.
You're talking about knowing who you are, identity, and especially when you're in an industry where you're playing a part, right? You get a role and you get known for that role, and some people, they take that and get offended. It's yo, don't call me Rufio. My name's Dante. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But did you have any moment where you felt like you didn't want to be associated with being pigeonholed into one character?
No, I'm sure. I mean, that's it was almost 30 years ago, and I'm sure I've gone through ups and downs of that as a young actor. It's a blessing and a curse. There's certain things I got, I get love for getting rooms because of Rufio. There's certain things I didn't get because you're I remember I got offered some role. It was with Steven Spielberg. I got to do this role, and he called me up in the middle of doing this. We're about to do this movie, and he's you can't do this role, Dante. He called me up at wardrobe. I'm trying on my clothes. I'm we can't do it. I'm what? He's you're just too recognizable to play this role. I can't. You know what I'm saying? I'm
what role did it end up being? He's E.T.
No, it was for a role in AI, and I was it's kind of cool that Steven's calling me up, but I'm at the wardrobe. Am I still getting paid? What's my
Yeah.
But I mean, look, at the end of the day, everyone comes to Hollywood, thousands of people every damn day. You know what I'm saying? In hopes to do something that will be remembered. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then, definitely. And I've happened to catch one when I was young, caught one again, Rufio and Zuko, characters that became iconic or impactful for their generations, and I've done a ton of other things that I really love that have been impactful to other communities and other things, and I continue to work, and I really love that. But to have these things that are really touchstones for people is phenomenal. Mm-hmm. When I first started doing Comic-Cons, it's very strange. I didn't grow up in the Comic-Con world. I didn't grow up in the nerd world.
Nerd world,
the geek world, you know what I'm saying? But being in the last decade or so, I really got to embrace my own inner geek and nostalgia and all that stuff, and find out the stories and that really touched me. Because at the end of the day, it's just great stories. We just want to be part of great stories. whether it be Star Wars or Star Trek or Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones. Like, these are great fucking stories, and I was a part of a few. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And I got to be a character that people. It becomes. I always tell people, like, the greatest part of storytelling and filmmaking is like when you do a project. We do projects, we do a movie, but our movie or our story becomes your story. Once it's your story, we want, it's different. You know what I'm saying? We want, like, it means so much to you in your life because of reasons I can't even get into. That's the craziest thing about being a part of the con world. It's like, at first I was like, yo, I don't know. I'm like some has-been walking around this fucking weird world. And then I was like, oh no, this is the play. These people care about the story more than most people. And actually, these are actually the people that are the arbiters of taste that are going to tell us what the next stories that are great are going to be, because these people are in tune with it. And I learned so much engaging and talking to the fan base and becoming a fan of my own stuff and tapping into what, you know, because it goes back to like that 12, 13-year-old part of you that's like geeks out from watching that show or that dance or that person. And it's like, there's something magical in that. And to kind of tap into that, you know, helps me as an artist, like create something I want to create, whether it be for, you know, stories or artists or the people I want to work with, or also just keep going to things I want to, like, remember what it felt like to be a kid and wanted to just rock, and why, and who were those people that were rocking that really made that light glow in you, like when you saw it, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so this is a crazy business, y'all. This is a crazy ass business that we still in it and we still doing it, and we get to create things. Like, look at y'all are dancers. I know you did the noodles, which is phenomenal. You have a podcast. Like, we get to just create shit out of thin air. Like, we are creators. That's the magic. You know what I'm saying? And I love, and that's the crazy shit where I'm like, I'm so fucking lucky. Like, how do I get to make movies? I've got to do so much shit in this industry. I was a b-boy, right? I'm a fucking Filipino b-boy from the East Bay, Pittsburgh, California. And somehow I got to make movies, do some really crazy characters on screen, animation. I've got to write movies, direct movies. I have a podcast. I got to write a book that's selling well. Like, what? Like, who? How? Who said we can do this?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know. I try not to think about it too much, but I just try to say I'm thankful that I can create whatever my heart desires, and there's like an audience out there to support it.
It's dope that you can actually sit here and reflect on that and take pride in and more than that, just have gratitude for everything you've done, because like I want to like co-sign what you said and be like, yeah, dude, we get to do that, but I also want to like semi not co-sign it and be like, you're kind of an anomaly, and that's cool too, you know what I mean? Like,
anomaly, but we get to do it. You know
I'm just saying, like, it's also like prideful for us to be like, yo, like, we're super honored to have somebody that is like straight up a legend in the room. You know what I mean? Like, yes, positive shit for everybody, inspiration. You go be your own legend. Cool.
We will.
All right, we already said that. Now that we're done with that, this motherfucker a legend. You know what I mean? Like, and you were able to do things that so many people either was rejected or failed or couldn't do. Your greatest hit's probably the debut still. We're not going to talk about that.
Shout out to debut. Debu's impactful.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, for real, like, whether it be, the crazy thing is, I know that, you know, us, now that we're starting to be considered old and stuff, we'll sit here and be like, yo, Rufio changed the whole game for us.
Straight up.
And yet, I would argue, especially with today's connectivity and social media and stuff, that Zuko has made way more impact than ever. You know what I'm saying?
And that's like, a cartoon I didn't think nothing of when I did it.
That's what I'm saying. But like, it's the reach is so profound and epic, and has such residual value that has lasting impact for, I'm certain will be a lasting impact for decades. And like, we have you in the room now, and you're still capable of being human enough to be cognizant and gratuitous to the opportunities you've been given. And I think that's such an amazing thing, and that further validates the honor that we continue to have you in this room. I
appreciate that. I think the longer we are around, the more humble we all get. And then, I don't know, look, man, I feel like a lot of me feels like a journeyman artist, right? Like I'm a dancer, actor, filmmaker, poet. You know what I'm saying? Started my poetry venue, and I love poetry, and we do a lot of stuff in that world. But it's like, I'm cool with the fame I got. Like I feel like I got just enough fame where it's like cool. It opens doors for me. I can rock with it. And I have had friends with bigger fame that kind of strangles them, or it really messes with them. And I respect that. I can see that. And of course, we can always say, "I wish I had more of this," or we can always play that game.
Yeah.
And we can all dig a hole and wish that we had the keys to never just run your own race, like whatever. Like we can't do that. But yeah, legend. I don't know. It's like I feel like there's so much more to do, but then also it's weird, dude. Like you can't spend that much time thinking about what we did because we're trying to do the freaking next
going.
thing. You know what I'm saying? It's like we're so like, what's the next movie? Like, oh, we're writing this, or wait, there's this meeting and we gotta let's see if we can make that happen. And so all the stuff that you did before is like just becomes like resume stuff that you're like not really thinking about.
Totally.
But I do feel fortunate, man. I'm blessed. Like, dude, like I haven't had a regular job like in my life. Like, I don't even know. Like, one time I was telling my something and my little brother. I was telling Dion, I was like, damn, I'm so fucking busy right now, running from meeting to meeting, and like I'm like unemployed. He's like, what? I'm like, I'm like the busiest. I'm the busiest person with no job ever, right?
I feel that.
And then Dion looked at me. He's like, you got a job? I said, what's my job? He's like, being Dante Basco is your job. And I looked at my little brother like, damn. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't even think about it like that, but you're like, oh shit, okay. It makes you kind of think. What are we doing? What are we doing? We making something out of nothing every day.
Yeah.
But that's like, I don't know. There's honor in that.
And there's joy in that for us.
There's joy in it.
And it's authentic, and that's all that matters.
But at the end of it, too, is like y'all, like, I want to rock with the real people doing the real stuff. Like, I want to do the stuff. I want to rep. I want to rep for us. I want to rep for the community. But I also, when we put it down, I want what we do to stand next to anybody. White, black, Asian, anybody. Like, and not talking about budget wise, whatever. You know what I'm saying? I know we ain't getting the budgets that some people are getting right now yet. But when we put stuff down and the actors and the artists I want to stand next to, I want to be able to put our stuff next to anyone. That's where my pride comes in. My pride comes in, like, as an actor, I know I've studied how much I've studied, how long I've studied. I know what I can do. I know that I'm not scared to tango with anybody on screen. You know what I'm saying? And like when I work with other actors or other artists, like I associate with them, like I want them to know, like we're come for everybody. Like we ain't scared of nobody. Like we give it up to a lot of people, and we rock with a lot of people, and we put a lot of people on high pedestals. But at the end of the day, we're here. Like we ain't scared. Like y'all gonna.
That reminds me of our tagline: "Respect all, fear none."
Exactly. Respect all, fear none. That's what I want to be as artists, and I think that's where we're at. We gotta keep going.
Yeah, that's dope. So as you keep talking about, what you mentioned, like the past stuff is a resume thing, right? You're always focused on the forward, the what's next. Like what you're talking about is the here and now, the future. And I think even, as you're talking about, kind of like having made it through, this industry as a child actor, having gone through the ups and downs, seeing the dark sides and then the light side and all of it. And all of that brings you to Dante Basco 2022 here today. Yeah. And so we're always chasing some level of like, I'm doing this so that I can say at the end of the day, I did what I came to do. I achieved success. And that term success, I think I would love to even hear how that's evolved for you. Cause I'm sure once upon a time, it's like, yo, once I do this, I made it, I'm successful. But then, here we are today to present day. I'd love to hear how that term has evolved into what it is today.
I think probably like, he's a kid, like, I want to win an Oscar. I want, all this kind of stuff. And I think that's still cool. I have some friends around that area. Then they've also kind of demystified that, like, it's not all what it's cracked up. There's a lot of politics and that stuff. But I think really when you come down to success, it's like, I've had days where I'm like, hey, if I don't work on another project, if I don't do another damn project, I'm good. Like, I'm good. If I don't do another gig, if I've done my last one, I'm good. I know what I did, which is freeing, because then I go, then do whatever you want to do then. Like, then it's like, whatever. Like, now I can do whatever I want to do. So I do find some success in that, but then, you know, you want to have success in the sense of, like, you want to put down some great stuff before you go. Like, I still feel like I've done some great characters. It's just, hopefully I got another one or two of me somewhere down the line, and that's the luck of someone writing something or being a part of the project going on. But then as a filmmaker now, it's like, I think there's a few stories I could tell that are like, that could be great. That could be, you know, I could touch some greatness. I could tell something great. I can be a part of something. It's always about, can I be a part of a great story? And you're trying to find that and do that. Or can you put someone else on that's going to impact the whole landscape of what's going on? I was talking about one of my producing partners in Hawaii, James Serino, Kinetic Films. We did the first 3 films together. And we helped put on Justin Chon. We produced Justin Chon's first few films.
Yeah.
Because he did a film that I produced called Man Up with Kev Jumba and Justin Chon, and then Justin and Kev came in and they wanted to direct a film. They did a film called Man Up. We did a film called Hang Loose, and then they did Man Up, and then, then James came in and helped out when they did Gook. And we're like, Justin has become this powerful force within the industry, and Blue Bayou that came out and just hanging out with him, and I'm so proud of him, and being a little part of what helped him get started is important also.
Yeah.
Like, it's all success. I think the older you get, the less the success is just you personally, and it's more about like the impact that you can have, in a wider impact. Because when you're young, it's like, I just want to be known, I just want to get money, I just want to whatever. And that's important. But once you kind of have those things, it's like, what are you going to do with it? Like at the end of the day, who cares? You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
no one's tripping on no one's thinking about your career in the middle of the night except for you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Which is cool. But there are things that you can do once you're established that can help the next generation, pass it on. This goes back to what we learned when we were younger. What I learned is, seek out a master, become a master, pass it on. That's the cycle. And we're still in the cycle. It's like, if you got to a place where you think you have some master or some things you can put on the next generation, put them on. It's just only going to add to your legend, hopefully.
Yeah. That's good.
Speaking of masters.
Well, speaking of masters,
that was just a good transition.
Yeah,
that was not the right order, but that was a good transition.
That is something that we love to ask every guest on this show. The concept of mastery, the concept of putting in so much dedicated focus, time, energy, blood, sweat, and tears into one single thing. And Bruce Lee has this quote where he says, "I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times."
Right.
So you brought up the term master a couple times. What is something in your life that you feel like you've put in that much focus into?
No, it's just, it's 10,000 hours right there. Like I said, I studied acting for 20 years straight. Like, me and my brothers, not just me alone. Like, there was some trauma involved, and there's things that happened that it got crazy, where you're studying, not for 1 year, not for 4 years, not a 4-year college program, 20 years of conservatory training, where it got to 5 days a week, voice, movement, scene study, play study, watching films, cinema, old classic study, and then it's the 10,000 hours plus on top of producing showcases and plays, and sometimes acting under duress and stress. But yeah, you get to a point where, like, you know what you do, you know what you can do, you know what you do, you have. The thing about acting is, like, you're in touch with your emotion. You have the colors. You've played all the colors. You know where they are. You can get to them. And I'm not saying any time, but you know how to get to them. But at the same token, there's like a thing where it's like, you become like Bruce Lee in a way where the concept of acting for me was like, we get to a place where I'm like, no more. You get to a place of acting where you don't act anymore. No more acting. You have control of your facilities and you've done the work on the character. So between action and cut, no longer act. If you're mad, then be mad. Don't act mad. Why act mad when you know how to actually, then you know there are 10 things you could be mad about right now. If you're going to kiss a girl, don't act like it. Like, kiss the girl. You can't find a reason to love that girl. The discipline is to keep it between action and cut. But, you know, that's throwing it out the window and get into that mastery place where you're like, I no longer want to act. I want to exist as a character in that moment as honestly as I can for the story and have the discipline to cut it when it's cut. You know what I'm saying? We didn't have that discipline when we were younger. There's dramas on sets, plays, scene partners, all kinds of stuff went on. You know what I'm saying? Now it's like we can do it. And when I'm with actors, especially the cats I grew up with, it's like, that's why it's great to direct them because I know what they can do. And I'm like, well, then do it. Like, let's get it in. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, mastery. That's what I think that's what I've studied most. Acting for 20 years solid. I know for sure. I've had mastery in that. I've been around the poetry scene for a long time and wrote a long time. I started a poetry venue in my living room 20 plus years ago, and then that's Dante's Poetry Lounge became DPL, the Poetry Lounge on Fairfax and Melrose, which became inspiration for Deaf Poetry Jam. Went to Broadway, won a Tony, HBO, and we've been around the poetry scene and wrote tons and tons of poems for years with my co-founders, Shihan and Poetry and Brother Jamel. And so, yeah, there's a certain mastery I have over writing that I really love, especially my style of writing and how I want to tell stories. So I've got to do that. I mean, I always loved dance. I stopped dancing a long time ago. I stopped the pursuit of dancing, but I'm always a dancer in my soul. And still today, I always say, like, that's the highest form of communication. Like, when my favorite thing in the world is to get lost on a dance floor to this day, because there's so much conversation that we have non-verbally. The highest form of conversation is to communicate non-verbally. And musicians do it. I wish I was better as a musician to play, to be able to communicate through music. So seeing jam players jam for hours and have all these conversations sonically without saying a word. I could do that through dance. And I've seen it through dance. Even when you know it's the same thing doing choreo, like doing a play or a movie. We know the lines, but saying the lines, doing the choreo is not dancing. Saying the lines is not acting. It's a communication and what we're doing in between the lines, nonverbal. Then now you're doing it. Now you're doing it. You know what I'm saying? And so, yeah, I don't have mastery over dancing anymore, but my heart's still there with dancing. But dancer first, writer, actor, that kind of stuff.
That's dope.
We'll see if we get there in filmmaking. We got a bunch of years to get there at the filmmaking side.
Yeah. Well, I feel like, for one, man, I wanted to just acknowledge the journey that you have lived through to even understand, like, yeah, I have put in my 10,000 hours with a specific craft, whether it be dance, whether it be poetry, whether it be now going into directing and filmmaking. I think the thing that I like get from this conversation is just a very, like, you say you kind of like, you just know what your lane is. It's like, you said, like, I got just enough fame to, like, get me to a place where I can get into certain rooms, but not too much where I get strangled by it or I get, you know what I'm saying? Like, but it's a very, like, your bag and you're right in it.
Correct.
And then you also have this, understanding of, like, success is not about me making it, because I've already kind of done the me thing, but, like, how can I put on for the future? How can I help other people? How can I build our community to be even stronger and larger and do even bigger things? And we're talking about budgets and, things that we're not there yet. Like, you have this very well-rounded, strong grasp of, like, where you're at and what you've done, but also where you're going. And, like, it's inclusive of the community that you want to bring on, because I can sense your passion for, like, yeah, like, okay, if I was that dude that gave Asian dudes hope to be whatever perceived as like the cool kid, it doesn't stop there. What's the next thing, you know? And what's the next thing after that? Who's gonna be the next person who was the Dante, the Rufio character that's gonna be able to kick down doors? So it's this very much like, it's not about just me doing me. It's like, if I can be a part of something to help others and grow this thing for everybody, like that's where I want to be. And like it's just really cool. And even you acknowledging what we do, you know, for dance, and not only just dance, but it's like what we are as an organization too, for you to acknowledge that in us, like that's an encouragement on our side, you know what I'm saying? Like I think that's so huge. So just wanted to acknowledge that, man. That's so dope. Very dope.
I love the conversation. I love the conversation, y'all. I mean, we're all on the same wavelength.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and I think the fact that we're like all here and we're connected and we could talk and we could support and we could see each other, what we're doing, like we're in the right place. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
It's horrible to be there and you feel like there's no allies. Or there's no one. You know what I'm saying?
Totally. Yeah, when you were talking about earlier about like finding like a clique of the right people, you know what I mean? It's dope to sit in this room and be like, oh yeah, we found that.
Yeah,
you know
we found
what I mean?
that.
That feels good, you know?
It feels good. So what it is you now hold each other accountable to keep creating.
Yep.
Support.
Yeah.
When it's time to support. But also with everything that everyone does, you know, you hold kind of like yourself accountable to like living up to that, creating that. Don't get left behind. Create something that's on the level of what everyone else is creating. And you know what I'm saying? It's like you have to have that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or else it's like you're just creating in a vacuum and you don't know if your stuff is even good or not. You know what I'm saying? Or you have 100. No marker to put it up to. We need a marker of each other. You know what I'm saying? And so that's how we improve.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well said.
But man, we're a little bit short on time, but we just want people to be able to continue to follow the journey, man. So how can people be up on the Dante?
Yo, get at me. Just at Dante Basco on Instagram and on Twitter, or at Rufio Zuko on TikTok.
That's a gangster TikTok.
Rufio Zuko. Let's go.
Hell yeah. Dante, thank you so much for coming through, man, and spending some time with us, man. We appreciate you.
Thank you, man.
Let's do it again. Let's do it again.
As long as you're on time next time, you know.
My bad. Anti-Asian off time.
It's all good,
thank you
bro.
Guys, man.
No,
great combo, man. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah. Folks, thank you guys for tuning into this episode. If you're finding it for the first time, we got a whole bunch more before this. We have amazing guests like Dante that have graced the pod. Make sure you follow us on our socials, KINJAZ Podcast, Cast with a K, on IG, Twitter, Facebook, all of that. Hop onto your podcast platform. Leave us a 5-star rating if you're digging what we're doing. Write us a review. And thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys next time.
KINJAZ Bang, y'all.
Peace.